Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the dimly lit room, a tense atmosphere lingered as two eyes remained transfixed on a glowing screen. The phone seemed to vibrate more intensely with each passing second, its owner's fingers clenching against its sides. The culprit for this apprehension? A notification, a digital summons that beckoned with an air of foreboding. With a hesitance that spoke of impending doom, the screen was unlocked, and with a swift tap, the darkness unveiled its secret.
No.
A shocked whisper escaped as realization dawned. But Trevor Harrison, his former high school tormentor who'd somehow ended up working at the same marketing firm, had simply upgraded his tactics for the digital age. Collapsing onto his bed, Asher stared at the ceiling of his small apartment, dressed in faded blue jeans and a plain gray t-shirt that suddenly felt too tight, constricting. The brown bangs of his short, conservative haircut fell into his eyes as hot tears threatened to spill. Delete and report, he muttered, going through the motions he'd repeated dozens of times before. But it was futile. The image had already been screenshotted and shared across their extended social circle. The humiliation was spreading like wildfire. His phone buzzed with a text from his coworker, Daniel. "Dude, you okay? Saw what Trevor posted? Guy's a total ass!" Asher typed back a quick, "I'm fine," while feeling anything but. He tossed the phone aside and curled onto his side, fighting back tears. A familiar, hollow feeling spread through his chest, the same one he'd carried since childhood. The feeling of being an outsider, of never quite fitting in. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across his bedroom as Asher stared at the wall, his mind racing. Every laugh, every sideways glance at work tomorrow. He could already feel them all. Trevor had won again. Then, something shifted inside him. A spark of defiance ignited where resignation had lived for so long. "No?" Asher whispered, sitting up abruptly. "Not this time." He grabbed his laptop and began searching. If Trevor wanted to mock him for being feminine, then perhaps there was power in embracing exactly what he was being ridiculed for. The idea forming in his mind was outrageous, maybe even self-destructive, but it set his heart pounding with something other than fear. Possibility. 3 hours later, his browser history was filled with makeup tutorials, voice feminization techniques, and fashion blogs. Not just casual browsing. Asher had taken notes, created bookmarks, even ordered a few basics from sites that promised discreet packaging.
"If Trevor wants to see me in a dress,"
he murmured, a determined gleam in his eye,
"then I'll give him something he'll never forget."
2 weeks passed in a blur of secret packages, late-night practice sessions, and countless hours of research. Asher's apartment slowly transformed. A corner of his closet now housed carefully selected feminine clothing, while his bathroom cabinet contained an array of makeup products he was learning to use with increasing skill. Standing before the mirror in his bathroom, Asher applied foundation with careful strokes, just as he'd practiced. His hands no longer shook as he blended the product across his face, creating a smooth canvas.
"Contour next,"
he whispered to himself, following the technique he'd learned from a popular beauty vlogger. "Define the cheekbones, slim the nose, soften the jawline." The transformation was gradual but undeniable. Each brushstroke revealed someone new in the mirror, someone who had been hiding beneath the surface all along. When he finished with a coat of mascara and a subtle rose-colored lipstick, Asher barely recognized himself. He stepped back, taking in the full effect. with his brown hair now styled into a softer cut that framed his face differently, subtle makeup enhancing his features, and a practiced posture that altered his silhouette. He looked beautiful.
"Hello, Eloise,"
he whispered to his reflection, trying out the name he'd selected after days of consideration. It felt right on his lips, natural and fitting. That evening, Asher, now Eloise, created a new social media account. The profile picture was carefully posed and lit, showing off enhanced features without being obvious about the transformation. The bio was simple. Eloise, fashion enthusiast, coffee addict, living my truth one outfit at a time. The first post was a modest mirror selfie in high-waisted jeans paired with a powder blue off-shoulder top. The lighting was perfect, the angle flattering, and the caption thoughtful. First steps on a new journey. Be kind to yourselves today. Before posting, Eloise's finger hovered over the screen for several heartbeats. This was the point of no return. Once this image entered the digital world, something would change forever. With a deep breath, she pressed share and watched as the post went live.
"Now we wait,"
she whispered, setting her phone down with trembling fingers. By morning, the post had garnered 47 likes and a handful of supportive comments. Most were from strangers, the algorithm working its mysterious ways. But it was a start. A flicker of validation that warmed Eloise's heart. At work, Asher maintained his usual appearance, the safe, masculine presentation that had been his armor for years. He avoided Trevor in the hallways and kept to himself in meetings, but each evening he rushed home to become Eloise, documenting her evolving style and growing confidence for a steadily increasing audience. As weeks passed, Eloise's following grew. She developed a distinctive aesthetic, feminine but not overstated, colorful but classy. Her captions became more personal, sharing vague stories about growth and self-acceptance that resonated with her viewers without revealing her complete situation. One evening, as Eloise was photographing herself in a vibrant coral sundress for her now popular account, her phone chimed with a new notification. "Trevor H93 has requested to follow you." Her heart stopped. Trevor, the same Trevor who had made her life miserable, wanted to follow Eloise's account. For a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm her. Had he discovered her secret? Was this the prelude to another round of humiliation? But then she looked at her reflection in the mirror. The coral dress complemented her complexion perfectly. Her makeup was flawless, her brown hair now styled in gentle waves that reached just past her shoulders. Extensions she'd learned to blend seamlessly with her natural hair. She looked nothing like the Asher that Trevor knew and tormented. With a surge of boldness, Eloise accepted the follow request. Within minutes, a direct message appeared. "Your style is amazing. That coral dress is fire. Have we met before? You seem familiar somehow." A slow smile spread across Eloise's lips. "Thank you. I don't think we've met. I'd remember someone with such good taste." The flirtatious response came naturally, fueled by a heady mix of validation and the thrill of this dangerous game. Trevor, who had made Asher's life a nightmare, was now complimenting the very femininity he had mocked. The irony was delicious. Over the next month, Trevor became one of Eloise's most enthusiastic followers, commenting on nearly every post with appreciation and increasingly personal messages. At work, he continued to treat Asher with the same dismissive attitude, completely unaware that the woman he admired online sat just a few desks away. Eloise's following had grown to over 5,000, with her content expanding to include makeup tutorials and confidence-building tips. What had begun as revenge was evolving into something deeper, more authentic. The hours spent as Eloise felt increasingly like coming home, while the time spent as Asher began to feel like the disguise. One Friday afternoon, the office was abuzz with talk of the company's annual spring formal, a prestigious event where clients mingled with executives and employees were expected to make appearances. Asher had always attended reluctantly, enduring rather than enjoying the evening. As he packed up his desk to leave, Trevor stopped by, leaning against the cubicle wall with his typical smug expression. "Hey, Asher, you bringing a date to the formal?
Or are you going stag again?"
The question was loaded with mockery. Asher looked up, meeting Trevor's gaze with a calm he didn't usually possess.
"I'm still deciding,"
he replied evenly. Trevor chuckled.
"Well, don't set your expectations too high. Not everyone can score like I do."
He straightened his expensive navy blue tie.
"I've actually been talking to this amazing woman online, trying to convince her to be my date."
Asher's heart skipped a beat.
"Oh? Anyone I know?" "Doubt it. She's way out of your league. Name's Eloise, social media influencer. Gorgeous. We really connected."
Trevor's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it dismissively.
"Anyway, good luck finding someone desperate enough to go with you."
As Trevor walked away, Asher sat frozen, mind racing. Trevor was planning to invite Eloise to the formal. The absurdity of the situation might have been comical if it weren't so terrifying. That evening, as expected, a message from Trevor appeared in Eloise's inbox.
"Hey, beautiful. There's this formal event for my company next Saturday. I'd love for you to be my date. Give me a chance to see that amazing style of yours in person. What do you say?"
Eloise stared at the message for a long time, fingers hovering over the keyboard. This was the moment when common sense should prevail, when the charade should end before it went too far. Instead, she typed, "I'd be delighted. Send me the details." The week leading up to the formal was a blur of preparation. Eloise spent hours selecting the perfect dress, a breathtaking teal gown with delicate beading that caught the light like stars. She practiced walking in heels until her feet blistered, perfected her makeup to withstand an entire evening of scrutiny, and rehearsed her voice until the higher, softer tones became second nature. On the evening of the formal, Asher stood in his apartment, looking at the teal gown hanging on his closet door. The magnitude of what he was about to do hit him with full force. This wasn't just posting pictures online anymore. This was stepping into the real world as Eloise, facing people who knew him as Asher, risking everything. For a moment, doubt crept in. He could cancel, claim illness, retreat to safety. But then he remembered all the small humiliations, the constant undermining, the way Trevor had made him feel small and worthless for years. And beyond that, he remembered how it felt to be Eloise, the freedom, the authenticity, the quiet joy of finally feeling comfortable in his own skin. With steady hands, Asher began his transformation. Each step was methodical, practiced to perfection. Foundation, contour, highlight, eyeshadow in shimmering gold and teal to complement the dress, eyeliner, mascara, a touch of blush. His brown hair was styled into an elegant updo, showcasing the delicate earrings he'd selected. When he finally stepped into the teal gown and zipped it up, the person in the mirror wasn't Asher pretending to be someone else. It was simply Eloise, radiant and real. "This is who I am," she whispered to her reflection, understanding the truth of those words for perhaps the first time. The rideshare dropped her off at the hotel where the formal was being held. Stepping out of the car, Eloise smoothed her gown and took a deep breath of the cool evening air. Through the glass doors, she could see the glittering lights of the ballroom, hear the muffled sounds of conversation and music. Her phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. "I'm waiting in the lobby. Can't wait to see you." With one final steadying breath, Eloise walked through the doors and into the hotel's marble lobby. Trevor stood near a decorative fountain, checking his watch. He wore a black tuxedo with a teal pocket square that he must have chosen to match the dress color she had mentioned to him online. As she approached, his eyes widened, lips parting in undisguised appreciation. He clearly didn't recognize her, saw only the beautiful woman he'd been admiring through a screen.
"Eloise,"
he asked, voice tinged with awe. "You're even more stunning in person." She smiled, extending her hand. "Hello, Trevor. Thank you for inviting me." He took her hand, then pulled her into a hug that was a touch too familiar.
"Everyone is going to be so jealous,"
he murmured, releasing her, but keeping his hand at the small of her back. As they entered the ballroom, heads turned. Eloise recognized faces from work. People who had walked past her desk for years without a second glance now stared appreciatively at the woman in the teal gown. "Let me introduce you around," Trevor said, guiding her toward a group that included several executives. "This is Eloise, the woman I've been telling you all about." The next hour passed in a whirlwind of introductions. Trevor paraded her around like a trophy, his hand constantly finding reasons to touch her arm, her back, her waist. Each time, she carefully created distance without making a scene. "And what do you do, Eloise?" asked Martha from accounting, who had never once spoken to Asher, despite their offices being across the hall from each other. "I work in digital marketing," Eloise replied honestly, her practiced voice steady and natural. "I'm also building a presence online, sharing fashion and lifestyle content." "She's being modest," Trevor interjected. "She has thousands of followers. She's practically famous." Martha seemed impressed, and Eloise felt a strange twist of emotion. The respect and interest she received as Eloise had never been granted to Asher, despite having the same mind, the same skills, the same worth as a person. As the evening progressed, Trevor became increasingly possessive, his comments more suggestive after several glasses of champagne. When he suggested they find somewhere quieter to talk, alarm bells rang in Eloise's mind. "Actually," she said firmly, "I'd love to dance first." The dance floor offered temporary reprieve, though Trevor held her closer than was comfortable. Over his shoulder, Eloise spotted Daniel, her friendly coworker, watching them with a puzzled expression. For a moment, their eyes met, and Eloise saw a flash of recognition cross his face. Daniel tilted his head slightly, brow furrowed in confusion. Trevor, oblivious to this exchange, leaned in to whisper, "You know, I've never met anyone like you. We should extend this evening back at my place." The suggestion, coupled with his tightening grip, solidified Eloise's resolve. This had gone far enough. The plan for revenge had served its purpose. She had seen the real Trevor, had reclaimed the power he'd taken from her. But more importantly, she had discovered herself. "Trevor," she said, stepping back from his embrace. "There's something I need to tell you." He smiled, misinterpreting her serious tone. "I'm all ears, beautiful." "Do you remember that photoshopped picture you posted? The one of Asher Matthews in a dress?" Trevor's expression darkened. "Why are you bringing that loser up right now?" Eloise held his gaze steadily. Because that loser is me. The color drained from Trevor's face.
What?
The woman you've been admiring, complimenting, trying to impress. She's the same person you've spent years mocking and belittling. I'm Asher Matthews. Trevor's expression cycled rapidly through disbelief, confusion, and dawning horror.
No, that's impossible.
You're lying! The coral dress you first commented on? I bought it the day after you posted that doctored image of me. You thought you were shaming me, but instead, you helped me find the courage to be who I truly am. By now, people nearby had begun to notice the tension between them. Trevor's face flushed deep red.
This is some kind of sick joke,
he hissed. I'm a woman, Eloise interrupted firmly. And I'm done hiding that truth because of people like you. Trevor took a step back, eyes darting around at the curious onlookers.
You deliberately tricked me. You made me look like a fool.
No, Trevor. You did that all by yourself when you decided that humiliating others was sport. Eloise's voice remained calm, even as her heart pounded. All I did was show you what happens when you judge people based on appearances. With that, she turned and walked away, head held high despite the murmurs that followed. She made it halfway across the ballroom before Daniel intercepted her.
Asher?
He asked quietly.
Or
do you prefer another name now? She hesitated only briefly. Eloise, I'm Eloise. Daniel nodded, processing this information without judgment. Well, Eloise, I think what you just did was incredibly brave. And for what it's worth, you look amazing in that dress. The simple acceptance in his voice brought tears to her eyes. Thank you. Can I walk you out? Something tells me you might be ready to leave. She nodded gratefully, and they made their way toward the exit. Behind them, Trevor stood frozen on the dance floor, the center of curious whispers and sidelong glances. Outside, the night air felt cleansing against Eloise's skin. She took a deep breath, feeling lighter than she had in years. So, Daniel said, as they waited for her rideshare, I guess this explains why you've been turning down my invitations to happy hour. You've been busy becoming a social media sensation. Eloise laughed, the sound genuine and unrestrained. Something like that. For what it's worth, I think you're going to be okay. Better than okay. Her phone buzzed with notifications. Word was spreading fast through the company's informal channels. Soon, everyone would know. The thought was terrifying, but also strangely liberating. You know what? She said. I think you're right. The Monday after the formal, Eloise made a decision that would alter the course of her life. She walked into the office wearing a modest but unmistakably feminine outfit, a burgundy pencil skirt and cream-colored blouse, her brown hair styled simply but elegantly, makeup understated but present. The initial shock that rippled through the office was predictable. There were stares, whispers, a few uncomfortable jokes quickly silenced. Trevor was noticeably absent, having called in sick. Mr. Harrington, the department director, requested a meeting. Sitting across from him in his office, Eloise prepared herself for termination. Instead, he said, I won't pretend to understand everything, but I do understand professionalism and respect. As long as your work continues to meet our standards, your personal journey is your business. However, I need to know if there are any accommodations we should discuss. The conversation that followed was awkward but productive. By lunchtime, An email had gone out to all staff about respecting colleagues' identities and privacy, with a reminder about the company's anti-harassment policies. When Trevor finally returned to work 3 days later, he avoided Eloise entirely. His previous swaggering confidence diminished. Their paths crossed occasionally in meetings, but he never made direct eye contact. Over the following months, Eloise's social media presence continued to grow, but with a new focus. She began sharing her transition journey openly, offering support and advice to others questioning their gender identity. Her authenticity resonated with a wider audience, and her following expanded rapidly. 6 months after the formal, she was invited to speak at a digital marketing conference about building genuine connections with audiences. Standing at the podium in a structured burgundy dress that complemented her brown hair, Eloise shared her story, not just of transformation, but of reclaiming her narrative. Sometimes, she told the rapt audience, the greatest act of defiance is simply being your authentic self in a world that has tried to define you. Every post, every picture, every word I share is part of my truth, a truth I once tried to hide, but now celebrate openly. After her presentation, a young marketing executive approached her. "Your speech was incredible," he said. "I work for Inclusive Beauty, and we've been looking for authentic voices for our new campaign. Would you be interested in discussing a potential collaboration?" The opportunity led to Eloise's first professional modeling contract, followed by others. Her background in marketing combined with her personal journey made her a valuable consultant for brands looking to connect genuinely with diverse audiences. A year after the spring formal, Eloise found herself sitting in a cafe with Daniel, who had become a steadfast friend throughout her transition.
"Did you see Trevor finally left the company?"
he asked, stirring his coffee. "I heard," she nodded. "Apparently he got an offer from a startup across town. Rumor has it he was passed over for promotion 3 times. People haven't forgotten how he treated you." Eloise smiled thoughtfully. "You know, I used to dream about revenge, about making him pay for all the humiliation. But now, I mostly hope he learned something." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "That's very magnanimous of you." "Not really. I just realized that living well truly is the best revenge. And I'm living very well." She smoothed the fabric of her emerald green dress, one from her recent sponsored collection. "Besides, in a strange way, I owe him a debt. If he hadn't posted that picture, I might still be hiding from myself." Later that evening, Eloise sat at her desk reviewing offers from brands wanting to work with her. Her apartment was different now, larger, brighter, filled with plants and color. On the wall hung a framed print of her first magazine feature, headlined, "The Influencer Changing How We See Identity." Her phone chimed with a notification from one of her social media accounts. It was a message from a teenager in Nebraska. "I just wanted to say thank you. Seeing you live so authentically gave me the courage to tell my parents who I really am. They're trying to understand. It's a start." Eloise smiled, tears pricking at her eyes. This was the true victory, not over Trevor, but over fear itself. Every day brought new challenges, but also new joys in living as her authentic self. She typed a reply, fingers moving swiftly across the keyboard. "The journey isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Be patient with them and with yourself. Remember that your truth is not diminished by anyone's inability to see it. I'm proud of you." Sending the message, she caught her reflection in the monitor. Brown hair now grown long and natural, features softened by hormone therapy she'd started 6 months earlier. Eyes bright with a confidence that came from within. The person looking back at her wasn't defined by revenge or reactions to others' cruelty, but by the simple, powerful act of choosing her own path. Eloise closed her laptop and stood, smoothing her emerald dress. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities, new challenges, new moments to share her evolving story. But tonight, in the quiet of her apartment, she simply savored the peace that came with finally being herself. The journey that had begun with a humiliating photoshopped image had led her here, not to the end of a story, but to the beginning of the life she was always meant to live.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!